All right, welcome everyone to our January 2022 edition of our Collaboration Cafe webinar series. This is the Midwest Big Data Innovation Hub. I'm John MacMullen, Executive Director of the Hub. I will go ahead for the benefit of folks who are new to this series, give you a sense of who we are as an organization and our goals in this series of webinars. This is a monthly series looking at a variety of different funding solicitations and having discussions about those. So the Midwest Big Data Innovation Hub is part of a national network of 4 hubs funded by NSF. And we are all working together in our regions and across the country on building communities and collaborations around data science and research data kinds of topics. And so if you are joining today or watching this in the future from a non-Midwest location, we do encourage you to reach out to the hub that is in your geographic area and talk about ways that you may be able to get involved in that local activity. Here in the Midwest, we have several different priority areas and themes that we focus on. These are really driven by community interests and regional opportunities and challenges. Our hub is a partnership among 6 universities in the Midwest, and we're led out of the University of Illinois. So these themes, may look pretty familiar to folks from the Midwest region. We do have a couple of cross-cutting themes around data science education, which is sort of our theme topic for today. Along with cyber infrastructure and data sharing. Both of those are really themes that cut across our priority area topics and disciplines. So what's the goal of this series? Basically, we've had a lot of community input about the need for ways that we can help bring people together from multiple disciplines, from multiple sectors to respond to proposal opportunities, funding opportunities in the data space. A lot of the research that is happening in data science and in other related areas really is a large-scale, multidiscipline, multi-institutional kind of activity, and so there is an interest in our community for a mechanism that helps bring together people across those kinds of boundaries, whether it's disciplines or whether it's institutions. And so this is one way that we're approaching that problem through this ongoing series and getting those conversations started, getting folks introduced to each other and starting to look for opportunities to collaborate across those boundaries. So on this call, we have some pretty regular segments that we focus on. One is a breakdown of a particular funding opportunity. Today is one from NIH. We try to have folks on the call who have previously proposed to these solicitations and try to learn from their experiences what the next round of these might look like. Going forward, we would like to have more researcher lightning talks. So folks who are interested in doing research in the particular topic area that we're focused on, hearing about their particular research activities, particularly early career researchers who may not have the resources or ability to initiate their own large-scale proposal, but would like to collaborate on one with other people. We'd love to have them engaged in this discussion and talking about their new activities and how they may fit in. Depending upon the size of the group, we do want to have some time for networking and group discussions on the call. When that's not possible, we do also have a Slack community and some other resources to make offline discussions possible as well. So this is a webinar series, but it has some resources behind it to continue that discussion when we're not here live in person. So you can check out our website for more details on each of these. I just put the link in the chat for you all. As I said, we do have a Slack community where folks are welcome to join and continue the discussion. We have also a shared Google Drive that has some notes from our meetings and has a really nice spreadsheet of prior awards for each of the programs that we look at. That was developed by my colleague Armgard Haken, who is on the call with us today. So thank you for your work in compiling all of those. And as I mentioned before we started, we have a YouTube playlist of all of these recordings that you can follow up with after the calls. All right, I wanted to mention that the Midwest Big Data Innovation Hub is a neutral partner within the region. We do have different ways that folks could partner with us on different kinds of projects. I'll put this slide back up later during our discussion, but just keep in mind that we do engage in partnerships with a variety of folks across the region and across the country to help, again, build that data science community. And so if you're interested in some kind of partnership with us, we're open to having that discussion with you. So our first 3 webinars in this series looked at NSF programs last fall, but we do want to take a broad look at different agencies and different funding sources throughout the year in this webinar series. And so today we have an NIH solicitation that we'll be looking at. As we'll see in our upcoming events in a bit, we have other agencies queued up for the next couple of months as well. But today we're going to start with an NIH training grant. And NIH historically has had a lot of programs that are focused on training specifically beyond their broad research portfolio. But this one, I think, is a little different from what you may have seen in terms of training grants previously. So you may have seen things where genomics researchers or other kinds of domain scientists were getting training in, let's say, bioinformatics tools or some other kind of computational tools. This is sort of the inverse of that. This is data scientists getting training in genomics to help them in their career development, in their academic progress. And so it has flipped that a little bit, but it is still very much in the classic NIH training grant sort of model. So let's take a look at some of the basic details here. This proposal is due near the end of May. So if folks are interested in proposing to that this year, this I think still has a good deal of runway for you to do that. There is no pre-proposal or LOI, letter of intent requirement for this proposal, so that helps you a little bit. They do encourage submitters to provide an informal letter of intent 30 days prior to submission for their internal planning, so that they know to expect to need to recruit reviewers to do this. But that basically still puts you at mid to late April. So there's time to do this year if folks are interested. This is a somewhat small award. It's $250K per year. Maximum per year, and that's up to 5 years. So in terms of funding a number of students, it's a relatively small number of students who could be funded under this each year, given that level. We'll talk about some of the restrictions that they have about what that student population looks like in a moment here. So I won't go through all the program goals in detail, but the intent really here is to have this be a workforce development kind of activity where we're bringing in folks with data science backgrounds and other diverse skill sets to really help the genomics research enterprise that, as we'll talk about in our discussion, may take different paths when these folks graduate from their programs. But I think what NIH is trying to do here is build capacity for different kinds of genomics career pathways through this kind of program. Couple of eligibility notes here. Since this is a sort of an institutional training program, they do expect that the PI for this proposal will have pretty substantial track record of prior awards. You know, that may be something to talk to a program officer about if you're concerned about that, but they do note that in the solicitation as well to be aware of. All right, so what are some of the important elements from the solicitation? I won't get into all the details here, but I wanted to highlight some of the things that stuck out to me as I read through this. A lot of the training grants are historically on either undergrad level research or on PhD level training. And so this one is kind of different because it's master's degree students that it's restricted to. So that's one thing to keep in mind. This would not fund your PhD students. This would not be a research experience for undergrads kind of model that you would see at NIH or NSF rather. It's more focused on folks who are in a data science master's degree program looking for genetics and genomics skills. This is also not a full institutional training grant, and so they don't allow full-time support for the trainees that are in this program. They're restricted to a relatively small number of hours during the academic year with the possibility of doing some full-time support in the summer. They do allow tuition support for trainees, so that's good. And they do have some other allowances for other kinds of participant support. Could be things like travel, could be, you know, attendance at meetings, things like that. Another sort of category here is what can you spend the funds on beyond the trainee support. So personnel costs, for example, must be below 25% of the total budget. So you have to keep that in mind if you have mentors or support staff who would be managing this program. That has to be a relatively small part of your budget here. And they do have a very small indirect cost allotment under this, only 8%, which those of you who have submitted proposals through your university have probably seen much, much higher rates for indirect cost there. So that's a case where you probably need to talk to your sponsored projects office on your campus to get permission to submit a proposal that has that kind of differential in indirect cost rates. Couple other quick requirements to note. They do position this as a program to help with building capacity and diversity in data science and genomics. And so proposers must have a recruitment plan that reflects a commitment to diversity and recruiting. And you also need an evaluation plan with specific metrics so that you can understand the impact and the outcomes of this program and the students who go through that. So as we have talked about on this call previously, the funding agencies are pretty good in their solicitations about giving explicit guidance about what a successful program or proposal looks like. And so in this particular case, they give you some details about the research experience plan for the trainees. Needs to include a number of different elements to go through their review process. So really having a concrete idea of what kind of training program you want to get funding for is really important here. Having that specified in a lot of detail will help your proposal. And the NIH in this case is very interested again in the particular audience of trainees that you're talking about here, and setting up some eligibility criteria, some other kinds of specific characteristics of the trainee pool that you would be working with, and how that relates to your overall plan for training and mentoring these students. This solicitation also tells you in quite a bit of detail how the reviewers will evaluate your proposal, which again is very helpful. In this particular case, they also talk about some post-award outcomes assessment that we'll look at in a minute. But in terms of the general review criteria, some of it is classic NIH, but some of it is specific to this particular solicitation. And so it's really important to read through that section and be aware of what it is that they are looking for in your proposal. If you're familiar with the National Science Foundation broader impacts concept, you can think about these outcomes assessment measures as being similar, but actually being even more focused on long-term outcomes. And so when you're developing your proposal, keeping these in mind, I think it would be really helpful to shaping that mentoring plan and training plan if you're keeping in mind the outcomes that NIH would like to see down the road here. So again, since this is focused on training and workforce development, they have some metrics like, did your trainees eventually get jobs in research or a research-related role somewhere? What kind of participation did they have in research, both in this program and beyond that? Did they help produce publications as a result in the genomics specific area? So that gives you some hints about what they're looking for in the training plan if they're looking for these kinds of outputs. All right, so I mentioned that there are a couple of awards within our Midwest region that have been made previously that are similar to this program. I believe this is the first year of this data science and genomics solicitation, but we were able to find 3 prior awards that have some overlap with the general concept here. And so we made invitations to, I think, most of these investigators, and we're fortunate to have one of them today, Professor Jessica Fall from the University of Michigan, joining us to talk a little about her work in this space. But I think the takeaway for me in looking at these 3 is the sort of diversity of academic units and disciplines here, ranging from anthropology to American Indian Studies and School of Medicine, social science sort of areas. So again, NIH is very flexible, I think, in how these kinds of programs are applied, particularly given the range of the different institutes' focus areas at NIH. So that, I think, should encourage folks who are interested in this program that you should pursue this, even if you're not completely focused on genomics in your home discipline. So again, these particular awards, along with others that we'll talk about in future webinars, are available on our website. You can check out the links to their abstracts and publications to get a sense of what folks have done in training grants like this before, along with other kinds of programs. So definitely encourage you to check those out if you have interest in proposing to this program. So that basically concludes our overview of the program that we'll look at today. So at this point, I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll open this up here with the folks on the call to our informal discussion. For those of you who are watching this recording at some point in the future, we encourage you to join us for the February or March live sessions so that you're able to participate in our discussions. You're certainly welcome to join us in the Slack community at any point as well. And we're always happy to hear your interest and input on future topics and future solicitations that we look at on this webinar. So feel free to send those along to us, especially if you're interested in a lightning talk presentation of your research as well. So thanks to those who are watching. We look forward to having you join this call in the future.